It's so important to seek treatment, and I'm here to help. Please visit the website at momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com to view blog posts and resources on this site to help educate and inspire you to take action, because there's no shame in seeking help for mental health. While you're there, please take a few seconds to sign up for my email list. You'll get some extremely valuable educational and entertaining content that can be sent right to your inbox each week. Plus, you'll also get instant and free access to my guide on managing your anxiety. You can also follow me on Twitter at MOC with Tiffany and at Facebook at Tiffany Warner. And once again, the website is momentsofclaritywithtiffany.com. Thank you so much for your support and for listening to your show, because change can only come when we stand together as one.
This is the Tan Talk Radio Network.
We are back to Moments of Clarity with Tiffany Warner. To join in the discussion, call 866-826-1340. Now, here's Tiffany Warner.
Hi, thanks for listening. And if you're just tuning in, this is Moments of Clarity. My name's Tiffany Warner. I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I'm your host. And today my guest is Dr. Kirby Ruetter, and he contracts with Homeland Security on the border at Texas, and talking about helping people with political asylum and what happens with all the refugees that he counsels. And before we went to the break, we were talking about some of the stuff that he's seen, and he was afraid to get graphic. I gave him a couple minutes to think of something. But Dr. Kirby, thank you so much. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you, Tiffany. Good to be back.
Remind callers, you're welcome to call in. It's a live show, 866-826-1340, 866-826-1340. And you're welcome to call in and give feedback, ask questions. But so, Dr. Kirby, so what's it like down there for real? So that maybe we can get a glimpse of what you experience.
Sure. I'll just share some examples of some of the sorts of violence that the people I work with are fleeing. So, first of all, a lot of them have had loved ones tortured. In other forms of violence. So one young lady I worked with saw someone get decapitated live, and she was right there, so she knew she was next. And she was pursued by the two gang members that knew that she was an eyewitness. And she was raped by both of them, and they were going to kill her, but she pleaded for her life because she had little kids. I've worked with people that have shown me where they've been shot themselves. And you can still see, dents in their body from bullets. And they've told me exactly where in the body the bullet still is. So once again, really strong people to have survived some of this. But I think what's even worse is when they know a loved one has been tortured. Mm-hmm. So, just as an example, it's very common that the cartels will charge some kind of extortion money. So if you are running some kind of a business, they'll come around once a month and charge you rent or tax, whatever you want to call it. And if things are going really well for you, they'll keep upping the ante. And if you don't make the payment, you're gone. You're kidnapped, tortured, and then left for dead. So one young lady shared with me how her husband was kidnapped, and she paid the ransom, exactly what they were looking for or asking for. But even with that, they killed him, and then they kidnapped her too. And of course raped her. But then they also showed her they showed her video footage of what they had done to her husband. And that included slicing up his face while he was still alive, castrating him while he was still alive, trying to cut off his leg while he was still alive, and then just shooting him to death repeatedly and then burning the body. And so she, of course, was forced to see exactly how her loved one was terminated. So, these are the kind of stories we hear from week to week. And what I'm doing now is I'm providing a composite. So don't think that I'm talking about, any one client here, but these are the types of stories we hear. And a lot of times what happens in Mexico is the cartels in Mexican immigration are in complete cahoots. So a lot of times it doesn't even really matter who apprehends them first. They're apprehended first by Mexican immigration, and of course they charge all these fees, but of course they also get all kinds of information about them, their family members. And then when they're released, they are promptly reapprehended by a cartel that was waiting for them. And then they're held hostage and, demand exorbitant ransom. So a lot of times a whole group of 40 or 50 people will be sequestered in, some small room somewhere, and the cartels will charge, $5,000 or $10,000 a head, which of course they don't have. So they're scrambling to, get this money together from all of their friends, family, especially in the U.S. And if they don't come up with it, they're just removed from the room and terminated. And so if you're sitting in the room, you know you're next if you can't cough up the money. So in some cases, if there's an entire family, like say a mother, father, and child, they might come up with enough money for two of them, but not all three. So, sometimes if, the father will say, okay, my wife and child can have the ransom money, I'll take the hit.
Yeah.
So these are the kind of stories that the residents are sharing by the time they get to us.
So that's hard. That's got to be hard to desensitize yourself to keep everything objective as a mental health professional, hearing that back to back. You got to do some self-care for yourself.
Yes. Yes, I do. So what helps in my case is I do this 3 days a week. So that leaves me 4 days a week to do other stuff. To meet with a more normal clients, quote unquote, that don't have such intense.
Just less intense ones.
Yeah. Or spend time with my family, obviously. Love to go on walks with my wife. Love to play soccer and jump on the trampoline and play tennis and ping pong and pool with my kids, three boys, love them to death. We do lots of guy stuff together. Sometimes, every once in a while, me and my three boys will just rent a cabin somewhere. So that way my wife gets a break from us. But I also get to do have some male bonding time with my boys. And yeah, we love our little getaways. Basically the rules are you cannot brush your teeth. We will have Dr. Pepper and pretzels for breakfast. All the rules that. Anyway, I've learned to appreciate my personal life much more in light of this job, especially relationships with my family.
Yeah, I can understand. You're watching all these people suffering. Do you ever get threatened yourself for helping them?
No. But yeah, these kind of immigration processing facilities obviously aren't very popular. But I would say the ones that get targeted more are the detention facilities, which this is not. This is completely different than that.
What do you mean? What's a detention facility like?
Well, the detention facility is basically a jail, a prison for immigrants that are slated for deportation.
And you don't work there?
So basically immigrants that have also been convicted as, criminals. But yeah, that's not the sort of setting I work at.
Yeah, where you see pictures of children in cages and stuff like that. It's really disturbing what they're showing on the news.
Yeah. I also don't work at a facility that's like that.
Well, that's good. Then it gets worse. And what you're exposed to and what you're exposed to is traumatic enough.
Yeah, that's a little bit of what I do.
And so when did you write this book? You wrote a book for trauma survivors, for people with PTSD. I want to talk a little bit about that.
Okay. Yeah, that came out last June. So, yeah, June of this year.
It's called Practical Exercises for Overcoming Trauma and Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder.
Yep.
And it's a dialectical behavioral therapy skills workbook. DBT, that's very effective. You find it's very effective for post-traumatic stress?
DBT, so dialectical behavioral therapy, basically it's an entire model that provides coping skills. So yes, it does help with PTSD to an extent in that it gives people the skills they need to cope with triggers. But DBT itself won't necessarily take away all PTSD symptoms. For example, it's not going to necessarily take away nightmares or flashbacks, things like that. So I absolutely teach some DBT skills to some of my clients that have been severely traumatized. But in addition, I do lots of EMDR as well as what's called TFCBT, trauma-focused cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yeah, EMDR works really well with post-traumatic stress, I find, and cognitive behavioral therapy. And DBT is like stuff I use for more like emotion, mood disorders or emotional issues or anger management, personality disorders, that kind of stuff, because it's all about mindfulness.
Yep, that's the case. Yep. I wouldn't do trauma work without EMDR. I love it. But yeah, you're absolutely right. So DBT is more skills focused. So it teaches mindfulness. In other words, basically learning to be more present, more aware, and accepting of the moment. It teaches emotion regulation skills. It teaches distress tolerance skills. In other words, how to do a better job of coping when you're triggered. It teaches dialectical thinking skills, which is all about learning to think more in the middle, not get so stuck at the extremes. So be more balanced, more flexible in how you see things. And then also interpersonal effectiveness skills, which is simply a really fancy way of saying learning basic social skills, conflict management skills, like you mentioned, anger management skills, how to deal with people, basically.
How to deal with people. We all need that book, huh? It sounds great. And do you use this kind of workbook with your refugee clients?
No. The workbook is only in English at this point, unfortunately. I am hoping and pleading and begging for a Spanish translation. But I think they need to see how well the book is going to sell in English first. But I have put a plug in for a Spanish translation. There's a huge, huge need for these kind of resources to exist in the Spanish language.
There's a lot of things that need to be, especially in Florida and Texas, that need to be in Spanish. It's the more south you get in Florida, some people don't even speak English in Florida.
Yeah. So, I do lots of DBT trainings on the side, and every time I do a training in a place like Florida or Texas or California, especially California, people ask me, okay, so does any of this exist in Spanish? And I basically have to cringe and say, not yet, but we're working on it. I recently did a 4-day DBT training in California in which almost all of the 50 students were bilingual from Hispanic background and who worked with primarily Spanish-speaking clients. Yeah, there's a huge need out there for this stuff to get translated.
Mm-hmm.